English 10 students, and welcome to assignment 1.2. Hopefully you started with 1.1 because that will make the rest of this quite a bit easier. All right, so we're looking at Brutus's monologue in Shakespeare's play, The Tragedy of Julius Caesar. And it looks a little scary at first, and so the first thing we're going to start out with here is just looking at some of these words that are being used, because sometimes the older meaning of the word is not really used so much today. So here you're going to notice below this monologue, or this speech that he gives at Caesar's funeral, you're going to see these words: censure, valiant, valor, base, bondman, rude, vile. And the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at what is the connotation of these words. So connotation is a little different from the dictionary definition, which is also called denotation. And the dictionary definition, of course, is just what it means. Connotation, however, refers to the feelings, right? So it could be the difference between a house, just a structure, and a home, a place that people tend to feel comfortable in the sense of belonging, right? One is just kind of neutral, house. The other one tends to be more positive, home. So when you look at this, words can have a positive, a neutral, or a negative connotation. So for example, if I were to give a referral, it could be a good thing if you have a business, right? I could be referring clients over to you so that it would have a positive connotation. On the other hand, if you're a student who doesn't want to get in trouble, you might feel that referral has a negative connotation, right? Because you don't want to get sent to the office and have a call home. So as we're looking at these words, we're looking to fill them into whether they have a negative or a positive connotation. Notice only two of these words actually have a positive connotation, while several of them have a negative connotation. So if we look at censure, right, to give criticism or show someone disapproval, most people do not appreciate criticism and disapproval, so that would be something you would put into the negative spot here, right? Valiant, courageous, or heroic, these are values that we tend to appreciate, especially in our culture. It would go right here, valiant, for the positive connotation. Now, once you've completed that exercise, now we get into the meat of the meaning of this entire thing, which is going to be a little trickier. So let's go through this and see what's going on. First of all, we have Brutus speaking to people who have come to attend this funeral of this major, important historical figure in Rome. And he says to them, "Romans, countrymen, and lovers, hear me for my cause, and be silent that you may hear. Believe me for mine honor, and have respect to mine honor, that you may believe." So as he's starting this out here, he's simply saying, trying to get their attention, right? And he's asking them to be quiet and listen to what he has to say. And he talks about his own honor. So he's trying to set himself up in this position of being credible, right? Because he is an honorable man, and people trust Brutus for the most part. So he wants to remind them of that so that they will listen to what he's about to say, especially because he's quite guilty in this murder. "Censure me in your wisdom, and awake your senses that you may better judge. If there be any in this assembly, any dear friend of Caesar's, to him I say that Brutus's love to Caesar was no less than his." So what we have here is we're having him say to them, sure, you may criticize, you may evaluate what's happening here, but think about the fact that I loved Caesar, right? So he refers to himself in third person here. Brutus's love to Caesar. And while that sounds probably weird to us because we don't go around talking that way, back in Shakespeare's time, that was actually a perfectly normal way for a person to address another person. And he's saying here that not only did he love Caesar, but he loved Caesar pretty much just as well, if not better, than everybody else in the crowd. So let's continue. "If then that friend demand why Brutus rose against Caesar, this is my answer. Not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more." Right? So he's answering their question that they haven't even asked right away. And he's saying to them, hey, I loved Caesar, and I didn't stab him because I don't love him. I stabbed him because I knew that he was not good for Rome and that he loves Rome more. Very patriotic. All right, let's continue. "Had you rather Caesar were living and die all slaves, than that Caesar were dead to live, all free men? So he posts this rhetorical question, and he's saying basically that, listen, if I had allowed Caesar to live, we would all become slaves, right? So the fact that I killed Caesar, I'm freeing you. As Caesar loved me, I weep for him. As he was fortunate, I rejoiced at it. As he was valiant, I honor him. But as he was ambitious, I slew him. All right, so he's saying here, hey, I loved Caesar. Every time he had a victory, I was right there cheering for him. I honored him. But his major problem here is he was ambitious. Now let's pause for a second there, because ambition is usually a good thing, a positive connotation. However, in this aspect, people did not consider it positive because he was overly ambitious. So instead of saying, hey, my ambition is to do well for Rome, to serve Rome, to make sure the economic situation in Rome has increased, that's great. But to say, I want to conquer Rome, I want to be the king or the emperor or the Caesar of Rome, not so great, because now others have to worry, wait a minute, if you're taking over, how is this going to impact my life? So ambition, again, negative connotation as it's used here. There is tears for his love, joy for his fortune, honor for his valor, and death for his ambition. So again, just kind of reiterating that. Who here is so base that he would be a bondman? If any, speak. For him I have offended. So he's using another rhetorical strategy here to state that, hey, who wants to be a slave? Go ahead, speak. You know, because if you're upset by what I have to say, you who want to be the slave, you're going to be the one who's upset by what happened. And he moves on. Who here is so rude that would not be a Roman? This kind of reminds me of the Patriot Act, wherein you need to swear your allegiance and your patriotism to your country. Otherwise, you're looked down on. And that's kind of what he's doing right there, is saying, hey, who here isn't patriotic? Who here is saying they're not even a Roman? Come on. If any speak, speak. For him have I offended. Who is here so vile that will not love his country? Sorry about that. If any speak, for him I have offended. I pause for a reply. So again, he's using these rhetorical questions, kind of like to say, okay, who among you wants to really be miserable? Go ahead, speak up. Speak up now. And of course, no one does, because nobody wants to say, hey, I want to be a slave, or hey, I hate Caesar, etc. So if you kind of look back at this video as you answer these questions, I've gone over these various points here. Why he's calling him this, his appeals, as well as how he admits to killing Caesar in a way that makes it acceptable, and the rhetorical questions and such. If you have any questions remaining, please make sure that you contact me, which you can do by email at bluebot@luhsd.net.